The week's top local stories analysed and hand-delivered to you in 30 minutes or less. Welcome to another edition of Kansas City Week in Review. Hello everyone, I'm Nick Haynes. Lots to talk about this week, and rolling up their sleeves to dissect those stories with us, investigative reporter Stacey Cameron, Steve Vockrodt of The Pitch, the senior writer for The Call, Eric Wesson, and Kansas City Star reporter, columnist and blogger Dave Helling. Now, anybody around here knows I'm not a huge sports fan, but this is not the Nick Haynes Show. It is Kansas City Week in Review, and for many people in this place we call home, the biggest news story of the week was no, not Taylor Swift playing to back-to-back sellout crowds at Sprint Center, but the Kansas City Royals as they clinched the division title for the first time in 30 years. Does City Hall shut down? Does our Metro screech to a halt, Dave Helling?
No. But, you know, it was a little easier getting into work today. I think some folks were out celebrating last night. Quite an accomplishment. You know, I think last year for most Kansas Cityans was just a bit of magic. It was just the most amazing time because no one really expected it to happen. Nick, this time it's a little different. I think a lot of people sort of really expect the Royals to perform well, and so you miss a little bit of that magic, but the enthusiasm is just overwhelming. Great thing for the city.
But for all the sort of big political and public policy questions we tackle on programs like this one, that's what people fixate on. Stacey.
Absolutely. Where you said 30 years since they've won a division, and what this looks to is Dayton Moore has put together a blueprint, somewhat like the Red Sox did more than 10 years ago, to sustain success, going through the draft, using prospects from other clubs, not using that short fix big money. And so it's putting this town as a baseball town back on the map again. And that is, as we've talked before, great for the economy and great for highlighting Kansas City as an urban city that's growing and is in the national spotlight. So it's a lot of civic pride. It's good to see success, and hey, maybe this is a blueprint for government going forward, right? To use fiscal responsibility to build a system that works. And so I say Dayton Moore for president and Ned Yost for governor, and if Hosmer ever wins the MVP, let's get him mayor.
They may be making those T-shirts because everybody is now trying to go to stores, the sporting goods stores right now, to pack up on all of their, fill up on all of their paraphernalia, all of their apparel as a result of this win, Steve.
Right, nice, and I'm sure a lot of fans are hoping for to replace those Central Division champion shirts with American League champion shirts and perhaps even World Series champion shirts.
Well, the minimum wage for a Kansas City Royals baseball player is $507,000. That's the lowest salary allowed by the Major League Baseball contract. It is a far cry from the demands of low-wage workers in Kansas City who've been trying to boost their pay to $15 an hour. And this week, that minimum wage effort was killed once and for all as Kansas City goes to court and successfully removes from the November ballot a citywide question to raise the wage. The move comes a week after the Missouri legislature enacted a bill blocking cities from hiking the wage above the statewide minimum of $7.65.
We've always had these kinds of legal questions, so that's always been true, but we are not prepared to stop fighting.
Now, that's the Reverend Vernon Howard, who's been leading the charge for the minimum wage hike locally. He says they're now considering other options. But Eric Wesson, what options can possibly be left to them?
The only option that they would have left would be to try to get a statewide initiative, and I think that would go down in flames. Basically because businesses, hotels, restaurants, they would put a ton of money behind it getting defeated. So I think that the only option that they do have is a statewide initiative, and I don't see that flying.
I hate to prolong issues on this program. Is this issue now dead as a doornail?
I don't think it's dead. I think the discussion's going to still be going on. But whether that transcends to any political will to get anything done, kind of doubt it, especially in Missouri, the way the legislature is made up. The petition effort would be one way to do it, but that's a lot of work and would be difficult. It'd be a heavy lift. Between that and waiting to see if the feds do anything on federal minimum wage, it's going to be a long sit and wait for minimum wage.
Now, it's not the end of petition efforts in Kansas City because we also have the opponents of the Convention Hotel. They collected the signatures. They've got them in, and they're still trying to get that on the ballot. We talked a little bit about that last week. What is the status of that, Dave?
Well, they say they have enough signatures to force a vote. Now, it's You know, they've initiated something, so it's only 5% of the last mayoral election. They think they have enough valid signatures. Bill Geary, the city attorney, has said no, those signatures cannot force what in essence would be an illegal vote. The contracts have been signed for the hotel, so it's likely that there'll be a bit of a legal back and forth over that, assuming the committee of petitioners has enough money to pursue that at length. The petition process in Kansas City remains quite discombobulated following this summer.
You can expect to see also Maverick transit activist Clay Chastain at a grocery store near you soon. He's just released details for a brand new plan that would see light rail connecting the new Cerner complex on the site of the old Bannister Mall all the way to the airport, and with stops along the way at the zoo and other attractions. It also revamps an earlier plan to put a Ferris wheel and area gondola in Penn Valley Park. He wants it added to the November ballot of next year when he's counting on big turnout as voters pick a new president. In fact, you can expect a crowded ballot if you live in Missouri. Voters are likely to decide important issues next year, everything from extending the city's 1% earnings tax to a new airport. And on the statewide ballot, you're likely to be voting on whether to legalize marijuana, increase tobacco taxes, a new term limits measure, and a constitutional amendment guaranteeing parents the right to discipline their children without fear of legal interference. Dave Helling, you write an extensive piece about this week. So why not? What is the downside of allowing voters to be making these decisions and taking them out of the hands of elected officials?
Well, let's be a little bit clear. All of those statewide votes on child discipline and marijuana may not be likely. Petitions have been submitted, and so we'll see if they can gather the 100,000 signatures needed. The other things on the earnings tax, almost certain. The airport likely in Kansas City. Maybe another crack at the minimum wage, depending on the legal situation in the hotel. The petition process was initiated about 120 years ago by progressives in California, who were tired of legislators gumming up the works on what they considered to be needed reforms. And so the idea of short-circuiting the Democratic-Republican process, if you will, that is people voting to elect people who make decisions, the idea was to circumvent that by setting up a system to allow direct democracy, that you could petition for certain items before a city council or a state legislature and have them enacted. But as I suggested a few minutes ago, Nick, it's very confusing, difficult, complicated, legally challengeable. The council drags its feet. The council has rescinded ordinances that passed, including Clay's light rail plan of 2006 that was able to pass. So it's really a mess. And one of the reasons I tried to write that story is it seems like that ought to be cleaned up. Either you have a process that's pretty clean and pretty open and pretty available to people, or you don't, instead of this sort of weird mishmash that we have now.
You say at the state level it's actually kind of tough to get it on the ballot. But on the city level, they say now it only takes 1,700 signatures. It's pretty easy to do that. Is there any effort, though, to actually change that, Eric?
No, not right now that I hear of. But the issue that you have with it is that when people get confused when there's a lot of things on the ballot, they stay at home or they vote no. So it has this kind of double-edged sword. It gives the appearance of a vote of democracy and being able to have your voice heard, but then on the other hand, it's confusing, and when people get confused, they don't know what to do, and they wind up doing nothing.
But there are some issues that lawmakers simply don't tackle, and it is left to voters to decide them, isn't it, Stacey?
Well, it is, and you look at these initiative ballots, these potential initiative ballots, legalization of marijuana, we see some things, economic development and taxes, even the wage hour law here. And Dave was pointing to why that petition initiative ballot is so important, because it gives people a direct voice in their local governing, right? But let's go to that wage and hour law. That was pushed through as a result of something that's happened across the country called preemption legislation, where state legislators are trying to pass broad laws that take authority out of local city councils, and that's exactly what happened here with the wage and hour law. If these kinds of bills continue to go forward, Texas has one that they're trying to pass now that wouldn't even allow local referendums when it came to things like health, economic, or environment, and that's starting to get pushed in Missouri. So we need to watch that wage and hour law and similar ones like that, because it's trying to strip local power out of our city councils and the people's voice. So I think, to put a nice bow on all this, Nick, all this talk of initiatives in local council ordinances may be stripped away in Jeff City if we're not careful in the years to come.
It's interesting that most of these decisions are being made on the Missouri side. You don't see many ballot issues in Kansas. Why is that, Dave?
Well, there is no statewide initiative process in Kansas. You can't initiate any laws on a statewide level like you can in Missouri. It is allowed on the local level, but the threshold for the needed signatures is much higher. It's much more difficult. Not impossible, but more difficult. One other note I'd make very quickly, Nick, is the petition process is not only important in terms of what it can do to allow people to have access to making laws, but it's a threat. It's a threat that can be used by citizen committees to say, look, if you do this, council, and we don't like it, we will seek petitions to have it overturned, and that in turn changes the decision-making process among elected leaders. So it's guarded very jealously by voters. They really like it in Missouri. That's why I think Eric is right. There's not a lot of change in the offing.
And Jermaine Reed, to go back to something that Stacey touched on, Jermaine Reed brought up an interesting point when he was commenting about it, about the defeat of the minimum wage, and that was that local jurisdictions, when you get into local politics, local city council people know what their citizens need because they're here with them, whereas in rural Missouri, they don't know what the economy is in Kansas City, whether or not they can withstand a minimum wage increase. So I think that giving local control is a good thing. I don't know why they would want to keep it where it's state controlled.
Everyone, it seems, is fixated on the race for the White House. But if you live in Kansas or Missouri, will you just be a bystander to all the action? For another election season, the state of Kansas won't even foot the bill for a presidential primary, so you won't be voting unless you sign up in one of the more informal caucus affairs. Will we even see any candidates during this presidential race?
Let's hope not. Let's hope they all stay away. I mean, I think the idea that candidates coming to a community is an important thing is a bit overblown. If you want to know about any of the candidates for president on either side, in either party, Nick, you can find that information. The idea that Jeb Bush coming to Kansas City suddenly gives us more information than we would otherwise have is not important. I do think that, you know, Missouri Republicans particularly are interested in trying to make the state more relevant in the primary process. They just announced changes in their rules so that Missouri is no longer a winner-take-all state if you get less than 50% of the vote as a candidate. So they'll divide it up by congressional district and some bonus delegates. That's an effort to try and make it a little more competitive, a little more interesting, and make the state more relevant at the primary level, because at the general election level, neither state is really relevant.
Now, Governor Jay Nixon getting double knee replacement surgery this week, so he's not going to be looking to be a vice presidential pick anytime soon, which was rumored at one time. Perhaps that was before Ferguson.
Yeah, that was
but is there any local dimension to this race? I mean, is there any, you know, Chris Kobach, potentially a running mate for Donald Trump? I mean, is there any local dimension?
You know, Nick, you're in the middle of a fever dream, I think, because I don't think Trump will be the nominee, and I don't think Chris Kobach would end up on the ticket. I think we're shut out in 2016.
Stacey.
Well, Nick, the majority of the country shut out in 2016, and that's the flawed process. In the primary process, there's only two populations of people that matter, and that's the big money donors who sustain you before the primaries begin, and then it's the voters basically of Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina to decide the candidates. So you go to the general election, and it's a handful of bellwether states or toss-up states that really matter. So unless the Republican primary is strung out and our proportional delegations are appointed that way, Missouri has no say.
Well, Missouri, I see, will be the site of another presidential debate, at least. Washington University in St. Louis snagging that. This is the third presidential debate they've hosted. No one has hosted it more. But why couldn't it be UMKC or Park University or even KU for that matter? Why can't we be spreading the wealth on this, Steve?
Well, I don't know that any of those institutions have necessarily asked or gotten organized to put on something like that, which would take some work. You know, the fact that Washington University in St. Louis keeps getting it, fine with me. The Washington Post didn't seem too happy about it, but if they want to do the work to put it on and it kind of becomes a tradition and sort of a badge of honor for that university, which it really kind of is, more power to them.
Remember those stories of a massive teacher exodus in Kansas, a whopping 85% increase in the number of Kansas teachers retiring in the last 4 years, a 64% rise in teachers leaving the state. Well, those numbers are false. This week, new figures from the state gave a head count of teacher departures that are barely a third of the size contained in that original report. And Missouri-side school districts surveyed by the Kansas City Star described just an ordinary number of exchanges of teachers crossing the state line. Many blamed the exodus on Sam Brownback's policies. Does the governor deserve an apology this week? Dave?
Well, I think we're working, by the way, on a very long profile of Governor Brownback in which these and other issues are discussed. But I don't think, you know, it's a symptom, not the disease. The disease is how much Kansas spends on its schools and how much money it needs to raise from its taxpayers to do that and other things. And for that, the jury remains totally out on that question, and so apologies may be a little aggressive. It behooves all of us to, you know, completely understand what's going on with the education system in both states, and so better, more accurate figures are a good thing. But it's not really about whether Brownback was right or wrong. You know, that we will continue to debate that for years.
But this was a state report, though, where the original figures came out, and he was taken, and he made national news, and people picked that up.
Well, I mean, you know, even if the original numbers were true, Nick, whether that was because of Sam Brownback or not would not be necessarily clear. Teachers could retire because
does this create,
though,
a distrust in data, period, that people are now going to say, wow, I mean, I never know what to believe?
What's the old saying? There's lies, damn lies in statistics, and that's exactly what you had here, that we were trying to forecast what Brownback's policies were going to do to teachers, and it hasn't played to fruition. So, but we don't know specifically the reason why that has happened. Is it teachers' commitment to their students? Was there flawed data in that initial report? I think, you know, it's certainly good news for the parents there that there's going to be consistency in those teachers, and maybe it has something to do with the overall salaries not being as bad as once played.
Eric?
And are there other jobs for them in other areas? Can they qualify to teach in Missouri or other parts of Kansas? So there's a lot to the equation that we don't know about, so I think it would be very premature to apologize to the governor.
Kansas City, Kansas police get body cameras this week. They even get big government money to buy them. KCK is getting the new equipment as part of a more than $23 million grant from the U.S. Justice Department to aid local law enforcement agencies. Kansas City, Missouri police remain a holdout. So it's not just about the money, Steve Ockrott?
No, it's not. The body camera issue in Kansas City, Missouri, and as well as a few other places, Chris Koster, the Attorney General, has raised this issue too, and this is just a segment of the issue, is, you know, there's open records laws that allow people to access, you know, public documents, public videos, things like that. And the question is if you have body cameras on police officers and they go to certain sensitive or private situations, the example that's frequently used is if a officer comes up on a domestic violence call, you know, should the public be able to try and access video of what's a very private moment between two people and very controversial issue? So that's one of the issues that's holding up the Kansas City, Missouri.
But even if the government was going to give you money, you would still be cautious of it? Is that the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department's response?
I think Chief Forte's position is, like Steve was saying, is what's the policy going to be? How are we going to do this? What is it going to look like? And where are we going to store the data? At the Congressional Black Caucus last week, that was almost every workshop on policing. And Congressman Cleaver did one of the workshops, and that was a topic of discussion. And in a lot of states, or a lot of cities, that's worked well. Oakland, for example, that they used as kind of a model, was once they went to the body cameras, police complaints went down. There was better interaction between the police and the community because both of them now were on camera. So both of what they were doing could be documented. So I think the thing that Chief Forte is focused on in my conversations with him has been what's the policy going to be, how we're going to do this, and what people will have access to.
Stacey.
Well, and it does protect police, and I think at this point it is a worry on the part of the police department of their behaviors coming out and being more open. But we can look back in Alabama in 2013, a 74-year-old man was killed by a police officer, and just at the beginning of this year, that officer was acquitted because of the body camera showed that the 74-year-old man charged that officer with a hatchet. And there were, he was arrested, that officer, he was tried, and in the civil court as well, he was finally let free because of the evidence showing that what the officer's testimony was in fact true. So this not only protects the public public in terms of open information, it can protect the officers as well. And we're seeing a lot of backlash against police now in places like Ferguson and other parts of the country. So I think the body cameras are the way to go. And at this point, you know, the public has to have more of a say in that. And I think certainly in a city the size of Kansas City, Missouri, we need to have them on the officers.
This is a body camera, cell phones. And a lot of those situations that we're seeing, they're being videotaped with people's cell phones. So a lot of people are saying, well, we don't really need body cameras because we got all this documentation now from people's cell phones.
Last year, KCPT broadcast a local documentary called Lost Minds that examined how police were responding to the mentally ill in the city and how Truman Medical Center was one of the first stopping off points for police besieged by psychiatric cases. Well, Truman has now announced it's shut down its mental health emergency room, leaving mentally ill patients with no choice but to use Truman's main ER for care. Hospital officials blame regulatory problems. Steve Vockrodt, you've written about this. Truman insists no one's going to suffer, no one will be turned away. So what impact will this have?
Right, so Truman CEO Charlie Shields tells me that, you know, they're still going to be able to take these patients and they're still going to be able to care for them. And to be clear, the types of patients that this behavioral emergency unit would have seen are people in acute crisis, kind of psychotic episodes brought in by families, police, people deemed to be a threat to themselves or to others. They're saying because of changes in the regulatory schemes on a federal and state level, they need to fold this unit in with their emergency room, in part because of regulations and because of cost. Now, there were 12 beds in this behavioral emergency unit, and so if it's being rolled into a 47-bed emergency unit there on Hospital Hill, it seems like you have a net loss of total beds. Now, you know, time will tell if there will be any diminishment of services for the mentally ill as a result of this.
Stacey.
Well, there will be a change in services, Nick, because now these folks are going to have to go into the wait lines of the normal ER. And as Steve just pointed out, these are acute psychiatric patients who are coming into their suicidal or threaten themselves or someone else. So now when you take them out of a place where they would have been taken care of almost immediately and given that kind of care, and potentially if this is happening on a weekend night, how long are they going to sit there in the ER before they're treated? And then we talk about the fact that in that hospital there were only 12 beds to begin with for these types of patients. It goes to the larger picture that we don't look at mental health and the mental health crisis in this country as a health crisis. We usually put these people to the side as stigma, and this is just one more step in a tragedy. I think a national tragedy and certainly a local one.
And Nick, quickly, I wrote a little bit this summer about the problems at Osawatomie in Kansas. And one of the things when you start writing these stories, you quickly understand is law enforcement is really baffled by the lack of places to take people who need help, not just acute people, but sort of mentally ill people they interface with daily. And there used to be a system, and they would take them to Osawatomie or maybe Truman or wherever. And those doors are closing, and it's highly frustrating to law enforcement officials. But it will also be enormously expensive to provide the space that's needed, let alone the cost of the treatment itself. It's a real problem the communities across the area are going to have to face, it seems.
Finally, some good news for 18th and Vine. At long last, Kansas City's perpetually floundering 18th and Vine district may be headed for something of a revival. As we tape this program this Friday morning, Mayor Sly James is joining with state and federal officials in announcing plans to turn part of Parade Park, immediately north of the Jazz District, into a baseball-centric theme park of sorts. They're calling it the MLB Urban Youth Academy, and it'll host free baseball and softball training year-round. It would be the 6th such facility in the United States. You're seeing video of the one that just opened in Philadelphia. This is a $13.7 million project. How is it being viewed, Steve?
Well, I was at the announcement this morning before I headed over here.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Sure. And, you know, so the typical people who get invited to these press announcements, I mean, everybody was very upbeat about it. They said it would help transform Parade Park and help bring more traffic and more meaning to the 18th and Vine district, where, you know, some could argue that good money has been thrown after bad money, trying to support what's been a development that's been difficult to get off the ground.
What difference does it make to the 18th and Vine Jazz District, Eric?
It would create more foot traffic, but that doesn't mean people are going to be spending money or have some place to spend money. And I think that's been the biggest problem down there. A lot of people in Parade Park are definitely against having it down there. There's some other things that they want to see happening with that area, but I guess time will tell whether or not it's financially successful.
And where is all that money coming from, Steve?
So there's some money that's being generated that's going to come from local taxes in the form of PIAC, which is Public Improvement Advisory Committee money, about $2 million there. The state budget, last year's budget for the current year passed $2 million for it. Major League Baseball and the Players Union is going to contribute money for it. So it's going to, and there's going to be a application for tax credits from the Missouri Development Finance Board.
I think it's a win-win, Nick, because you've got new money and new blood and new players coming into that area of the city where it's had stagnant growth. We're not going to be able to sustain the 18th and Vine with Jazz and the League Baseball alone. We start to see that academy come in, more connection with the East Crossroads, and maybe seeing new people coming in with new money and ideas starts to really spur the growth there, finally.
While Americans whoop and give standing O's when the military is mentioned at ball games, the armed forces are becoming more and more disconnected from the rest of us. This week, the Kansas Air National Guard invited me to join them on a mission clear out to the Pacific as we refueled midair 7 of the Blue Angels. Yep, that's my video from my iPhone as we pump 1,000 gallons of oil a minute into one of those elite jets. Thank you so much for that opportunity. The goal is not to give members of the media and civic leaders a free trip, but to make sure we're aware of where our tax money is going. That is our week in review. Our thanks to our news reviewers, Steve Ockrott from The Pitch and Dave Helling of the Kansas City Star, investigative reporter Stacey Cameron and Eric Wesson of The Call. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.